This was me 100 days ago. I was out of shape, full of excuses, and completely convinced that this was just how I was built. I saw fitness as something for other people. You know, people with more time, more energy, better genetics. My life was just a tired rotation of work, exhaustion, and cheap dopamine from food that made me feel good for a minute and awful for a day. I told myself I was too busy. I told myself I'd start next week. I told myself 1,000 different lies, all to protect me from one simple, terrifying truth. I was afraid to even try because I was terrified to fail. Every time I'd catch my reflection, I'd look away. I didn't recognize the person staring back at me. The energy? Gone. Confidence was a distant memory. I was living life in black and white and didn't even realize how bad it was until I saw a photo of myself from a friend's birthday. That was it. That was the moment. The final straw. I looked tired, I looked withdrawn, and I just looked stuck. But what if I told you that in just 100 days, I went from that to this? What if I told you the person you see right now isn't the result of some magic pill or secret workout plan? This is the raw, unfiltered story of how I went from zero to unstoppable. This is the story of how I took back control, and it all started with one single decision. That decision wasn't some big, inspiring moment. Honestly, it was forged in quiet desperation. That photo did it. It wasn't just about how I looked, but what that picture represented. A life lived on the sidelines. The next morning, I woke up, and for the first time ever, the chorus of excuses in my head was drowned out by a single defiant thought. Enough. I didn't wait for Monday. I didn't wait for the first of the month. I started right then. Day 1. And when I say 0 in my title, I'm not exaggerating. My fitness level was literally 0. I hadn't intentionally exercised in years. My diet was a chaotic mess of convenience food, sugary drinks, and late-night snacks that were more about comfort than nutrition. The first step was the most humbling, the before photos. Standing in front of a mirror, I forced myself to look. I mean, really look. I took photos from the front, the side, the back. It was brutal. Every angle was a monument to my own neglect. Then came the measurements and the scale. The numbers were just as unforgiving. A wave of shame hit me so hard, I almost quit right there. But then I remembered that party photo. I remembered that feeling of being a spectator in my own life, and that shame turned into fuel. I saved those pictures to a folder on my phone labeled Day 1, not as a source of self-hatred, but as a promise that this was the new low point. My first goal was simple, almost laughably so. It wasn't to get a six-pack or bench press a car. It was just to finish one 20-minute workout without quitting and to drink a gallon of water. That's it. I found a beginner workout on YouTube, no equipment needed, and just pressed play. I can't even describe how hard that first workout was. My lungs were on fire in minutes. My muscles, which had been hibernating for years, were screaming at me. Every push-up on my knees felt like I was trying to move a mountain. Every jumping jack was a clumsy, uncoordinated disaster. I had to pause the video at least 5 times just to catch my breath, my heart pounding against my ribs. The voice in my head was relentless. See, you can't do this. You're too out of shape. Just stop. No one will know. But for the first time, I didn't listen. I finished. I collapsed on the floor, drenched in sweat, gasping for air, and I felt a flicker of something I hadn't felt in a very long time: pride. It wasn't some triumphant victory, it was a gritty, ugly, hard-won battle against myself. They say the hardest part is just showing up, even if the gym is your own living room. That day, I finally showed up. The first month was a brutal, monotonous grind. There was no epic training montage, no sudden dramatic changes. It was just the quiet, unglamorous work of showing up every single day, especially on the days I really didn't want to. My body ached in places I didn't know could ache. My old habits fought back hard. The siren song of the snooze button and the late-night pizza delivery was deafening. My strategy was built on 2 things: simplicity and consistency. I knew if I made it too complicated, I'd fall into the perfection trap, that all or nothing thinking where if you can't do it perfectly, you don't do it at all. So I made my new habits so small it felt ridiculous not to do them. My workout plan was a basic 3-day-a-week, full-body routine at home. Nothing fancy: squats, push-ups, rows, lunges, and a plank. I focused on compound movements that work multiple muscles at once, since I read that was the most efficient way to build a foundation. I didn't even think about a gym yet. The goal was just to build the habit of movement and make it as easy as possible. Nutrition was where the real war was waged. People say transformation is like 70% nutrition, and I totally believe it now. I knew radical diets would fail. I'd tried them before, and they always ended in a spectacular binge. So instead, I focused on adding, not just subtracting. I had two simple rules: hit a protein target of 150 grams a day and drink a gallon of water. That's it. Focusing on protein kept me feeling fuller and killed my cravings for junk. And the water just flushed out my system and gave me more energy. I didn't ban any foods, but I found that by just adding those two things, my desire for the bad stuff started to fade on its own. It was a strategy of crowding out the bad with the good. The mental game was exhausting. My brain, so used to comfort, looked for any excuse to quit. You're too sore today, take a day off. You worked hard, you deserve a treat. This is taking too long, it's not working. I had to actively fight my own internal monologue every single day. Then, around week 3, something happened. I was putting on a pair of jeans that were usually uncomfortably tight, and they just slid on, easily. It wasn't a huge difference, but it was real. That same week, I realized I had finished a full set of push-ups without needing to pause. These were the first non-scale victories, those little glimmers of hope that prove the process is working, even when the scale is being stubborn. At my day 30 check-in, I took the photos and measurements. Side by side with day 1, the change wasn't earth-shattering, but it was there. My face was less puffy. I could see a subtle new shape in my shoulders. I had lost 8 pounds, but more importantly, I had lost that look of complete exhaustion. I had proven to myself that I could stick with something for 30 straight days. The foundation was built. The second month is where the real test began. The novelty had worn off, and the initial rapid drop in water weight was over. The scale stopped moving. The workouts felt harder, not easier. I had hit the dreaded plateau. For 2 solid weeks, the number on the scale did not budge. My body, which had been responding so well, seemed to have just stopped. It was incredibly frustrating. This is the exact point where every other attempt I'd ever made had failed. I'd think, see, all this hard work for nothing, and I'd give up. A plateau feels like failure, but I was learning it's actually a signal. It's your body telling you it has successfully adapted to what you were doing, and now it's time to change things up. It's not a dead end. It's a crossroads. This was also when I realized this whole thing wasn't just about my body. My mind was sharper. I had more energy in the afternoons. I was sleeping better than I had in a decade. The discipline I was building in the gym was spilling over into every other part of my life. I was more focused at work, more present with my family. I was building a better life, not just a better body. And this is where the title of this video really came into focus. This idea of no limits, just results. I realized that for years, my life had been run by a long list of self-imposed limitations. I can't run. I can't lift heavy things. I don't have the discipline. This journey was systematically tearing that list to shreds. It wasn't about being reckless. It was about rejecting the mental story that I was somehow incapable. The day 90 photos were almost shocking to me. I put them next to the day 1 photos, and it honestly looked like 2 different people. The progress was undeniable. With only 10 days left, I felt this incredible momentum. The finish line was in sight. The final 10 days felt like the last lap of a long race. My motivation was at an all-time high, and I was laser-focused on finishing as strong as I possibly could. This wasn't about long-term strategy anymore. This was about dialing everything in for the final day 100 photo. Much like a physique competitor does before a show, I had read about how you can manipulate things in the final week for a short-term effect, and I wanted to see that final level of refinement. This isn't a sustainable long-term approach, but a short-term strategy to reveal all the hard work of the last 90 days. I implemented a simple water and sodium manipulation plan. For the first 7 days of the week, I drank almost 2 gallons of water a day and kept my sodium a little high. This gets your body comfortable with flushing out water. Then, for the final 2 days, I drastically cut both my water and sodium. The idea is that your body continues to flush water for a short period, leading to a tighter, more shrink-wrapped look. This was also when I realized this whole thing wasn't just about my body. My mind was sharper. I had more energy in the afternoons. I was sleeping better than I had in a decade. The discipline I was building in the gym was spilling over into every other part of my life. I was more focused at work, more present with my family. I was building a better life, not just a better body. And this is where the title of this video really came into focus. This idea of no limits, just results. I realized that for years, my life had been run by a long list of self-imposed limitations. I can't run. I can't lift heavy things. I don't have the discipline. This journey was systematically tearing that list to shreds. It wasn't about being reckless, it was about rejecting the mental story that I was somehow incapable. The day 90 photos were almost shocking to me. I put them next to the day 1 photos, and it honestly looked like two different people. The progress was undeniable. With only 10 days left, I felt this incredible momentum. The finish line was in sight. The final 10 days felt like the last lap of a long race. My motivation was at an all-time high, and I was laser-focused on finishing as strong as I possibly could. This wasn't about long-term strategy anymore. This was about dialing everything in for the final day 100 photo. Much like a physique competitor does before a show, I had read about how you can manipulate things in the final week for a short-term effect, and I wanted to see that final level of refinement. This isn't a sustainable, long-term approach, but a short-term strategy to reveal all the hard work of the last 90 days. I implemented a simple water and sodium manipulation plan. For the first 7 days of the week, I drank almost 2 gallons of water a day and kept my sodium a little high. This gets your body comfortable with flushing out water. Then, for the final 2 days, I drastically cut both my water and sodium. The idea is that your body continues to flush water for a short period, leading to a tighter, more shrink-wrapped look. My training in this final week was lighter. The goal wasn't to build more muscle, but to keep what I had while letting my body fully recover. I did full-body workouts with lighter weight and higher reps, really focusing on that mind-muscle connection and getting a good pump. Emotionally, this week was a trip. I was filled with pride, excitement, and just sheer disbelief. I'd catch my reflection and have to do a double take. Is that really me? I spent a lot of time looking at that day 1 folder on my phone. I looked at the picture of that tired, defeated man and felt this overwhelming sense of gratitude for him. Gratitude that he had the guts to start. Gratitude that he didn't quit on day 3 or day 15 or during that plateau on day 45. I was about to cross the finish line because he was brave enough to take the first step. Instead of quitting, I decided to get smarter. I knew just trying harder without a plan would lead to burnout. So I made 2 big changes. First, I evolved my training. My body was used to the simple body weight routine. It needed a new challenge. This is when I finally bought a gym membership. I switched from a 3-day full-body routine to a 4-day push-pull leg split. This let me increase the volume and intensity on specific muscle groups, pushing them past their new comfort zone. I also got serious about progressive overload, the principle of gradually increasing the demands on your muscles. I started a logbook, tracking every lift, every set, every rep. My goal each week was simple: beat the logbook. Add 1 more rep or add 5 more pounds. It gamified the whole process and turned every workout into a challenge against my past self. Second, I tweaked my nutrition. My first instinct was to slash my calories, but I'd read stories about people who actually ate more to get leaner because the extra fuel powered more intense workouts and built more muscle. So instead of starving myself, I focused on fuel quality. I kept my calories the same but made one simple swap. I replaced a snack with a clean, whole food meal. That small change, combined with the tougher training, seemed to be the key. My body needed better fuel to perform, and that performance was what would ultimately change how I looked. This phase also taught me how critical recovery is. I was treating rest days like a weakness, but the truth is, a lot of people plateau because their bodies never truly recover. Muscle isn't built in the gym, it's repaired and built during rest. I started taking sleep seriously, aiming for 7 to 8 hours a night. On my rest days, I'd do active recovery, like a long walk or some light stretching. At the day 60 check-in, the difference was stark. I'd only lost another 6 pounds on the scale, but the pictures told a completely different story. The added muscle was changing my body's shape. The stubborn fat around my stomach was noticeably smaller. I was breaking through the plateau not by working harder, but by working smarter. By the way, if you're finding this breakdown of my training and diet useful, I've actually put together a free PDF with my exact push-pull legs workout split from this phase, including all the exercises, sets, and reps. The link is right at the top of the description below. It's the exact plan that helped me smash through my first major plateau. Okay, let's get back to the final stretch. This third month was the breakthrough. This was when everything just clicked. The habits I had been forcing for 60 days suddenly didn't feel forced anymore. They felt like part of me. Waking up early to work out wasn't a chore. It was my time. Meal prepping on a Sunday wasn't a hassle. It was setting myself up for a win. This was the identity shift. I stopped seeing myself as a guy trying to get fit. I was a person who was fit. I was a person who trained. And focusing on that new identity made all the difference. The physical results started to snowball. This was when people in my life really began to notice. I'd get comments at work, questions from friends. "You look great. What have you been doing?" Each comment was a little jolt of validation that reinforced my own commitment. It was proof that the work I was doing in private was creating a result everyone could see, but the most profound changes were in what I could do. I remember one day at the gym, I walked over to the pull-up bar. For my entire life, I had never been able to do a single pull-up. It was just one of those things I accepted I couldn't do. But on this day, I just tried. I pulled, and my chin went right over the bar. It was shaky, it wasn't pretty, but I did it. I felt this incredible surge of accomplishment. That one pull-up meant more to me than any number on the scale. But as I stood there looking at the two photos, I knew with absolute certainty, the biggest change wasn't physical. The real transformation was the one you can't see. It was mental. It was the death of that nagging voice that always said, "I can't." It was the birth of the discipline to show up even when motivation was gone. It was discovering that my limits were never real. They were just illusions I had built for myself. I felt like a different person, not because of how I looked, but because of the confidence that comes from keeping a promise to yourself 100 times in a row. The "no limits, just results" idea wasn't just a catchy phrase anymore. It was my lived experience. This journey taught me that we are all so much more capable than we give ourselves credit for. The human body and mind are incredibly adaptable, but you have to give them a reason to adapt. You have to apply stress, you have to be consistent, and you have to be patient. This isn't an after photo. There is no finish line. This is just now. This is my new baseline. This is the starting point for the rest of my life. So, what's the secret? What's the one big takeaway from these 100 days? It's this. The magic you're looking for is in the work you're avoiding. There was no magic pill. There was no secret workout. The only secret is brutal, boring consistency. It's about showing up on the days you feel great, and more importantly, on the days you feel like quitting. It's understanding that progress isn't about being perfect. It's about refusing to let one bad meal or one missed workout derail the whole process. It's about embracing the idea that something is always better than nothing. If I can do this, starting from absolute zero, a guy who thought walking to the fridge was a workout, then I promise you, you can too. The hardest part of this entire 100-day journey was the first 10 minutes, just summoning the courage to start. So I'm asking you, what's the one small step you can take today? Not tomorrow, not next Monday. Today. Can you go for a 10-minute walk? Can you drink an extra glass of water? Can you do 5 push-ups? That's all it takes to begin. If this story resonated with you, and if you want to see how I'm turning this 100-day sprint into a sustainable, lifelong marathon, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. I'll be sharing everything I learn along the way. And please let me know in the comments, what's the one small step you're going to take today? I want to hear about it. Thanks for watching. My training in this final week was lighter. The goal wasn't to build more muscle, but to keep what I had while letting my body fully recover. I did full body workouts with lighter weight and higher reps, really focusing on that mind-muscle connection and getting a good pump. Emotionally, this week was a trip. I was filled with pride, excitement, and just sheer disbelief. I'd catch my reflection and have to do a double take. Is that really me? I spent a lot of time looking at that day one folder on my phone. I looked at the picture of that tired, defeated man and felt this overwhelming sense of gratitude for him. Gratitude that he had the guts to start. Gratitude that he didn't quit on day 3 or day 15 or during that plateau on day 45. I was about to cross the finish line because he was brave enough to take the first step. And then it was here. Day 100. I woke up feeling lean, full of energy, and honestly, pretty nervous. I set up my phone in the exact same spot as day 1. I stood in the same pose, and then I took the final photos. Putting the day 1 and day 100 pictures side by side, it was surreal. The person on the left was soft, tired, and hiding. The person on the right was strong, defined, and confident. It was me, but it was a version of me I never, ever thought was possible. Let's talk numbers for a second. In total, I lost 22 pounds. But the scale doesn't even begin to tell the real story. I lost 6 inches off my waist. My bench press went from struggling with an empty bar to repping out 185 pounds. And I went from 0 pull-ups to being able to do a clean set of 8. The change was in my body composition. I had lost a significant amount of fat while gaining a significant amount of muscle, which is why the visual change was so much more dramatic than the number on the scale suggests.